Okay, so here's the big news. After years and years of tough negotiations, it has finally happened. The European Union and Indonesia have hammered out a landmark trade agreement. And this thing is set to completely reshape how everything, from cars to coffee, moves between them. So what does this massive deal actually mean for businesses and for us? Well, let's get into it and break it all down. So let's just start with the headline number, because it is absolutely staggering. Over 98%. That is the percentage of goods traded between the EU and Indonesia that will over time become completely free of tariffs. I mean, just think about that for a second. That kind of change is going to send ripples through almost every single sector of their economies. And you know that 98% figure? It doesn't even tell the whole story, not by a long shot. When you look at it by the actual value of the goods being traded, this deal covers pretty much everything. So we're not just talking about trimming a few taxes here and there. This is a complete, top-to-bottom reimagining of their economic partnership. To make sense of it all, here's how we're going to break it down. First up, we'll get into what this landmark agreement really is. Then, we'll peek inside at all the modern rules, see the real-world impact on key industries, check out the timeline for when this all becomes reality. And, finally, and this is a big one, we'll explore its really ambitious goals for a sustainable future. All right, so let's start at the beginning. What in the world did the EU and Indonesia actually agree on? Because I'll tell you right now, this is not your grandfather's trade deal. This is a thoroughly modern agreement with a much, much more ambitious scope. What we're looking at is called a CEPA. That's a Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. And that word, comprehensive, is really the key here. See, older deals were mostly about just cutting taxes on goods. A CEPA, on the other hand, builds a whole new rulebook for modern business. It covers everything from digital trade and services to investment protection, intellectual property, and as we're about to see, sustainability. So why spend all those years at the negotiating table? What was the big prize for each side? Well, for the EU, it's all about getting better access for its high-value goods. We're talking cars, machinery, pharmaceuticals, into one of the world's fastest-growing markets. And for Indonesia, it's about paving a smoother road into Europe for its key exports like palm oil and textiles, and also, really importantly, making it way easier for its smaller businesses to go global. So now we've got the big picture, but honestly, the real innovation, the truly forward-thinking stuff in this deal, it's all in the details. It's in the modern rulebook they've designed to run this new era of trade. So let's take a look inside. And this is where it gets really practical. The deal brings in things like TFA plus customs rules, which is just a fancy way of saying goods get across borders faster and with less hassle. It creates clear rules for digital trade, which is huge. It also protects unique regional products, like champagne from the EU or Gayo coffee from Indonesia. And maybe most importantly, it slashes red tape for small businesses by letting them self-certify their products. That's a game changer. Okay, so those are the new rules of the road. But what does all of this actually mean for the products being shipped between Europe and Indonesia? Let's zoom in on the impact for some of the key industries involved. The impact here is just massive. European car manufacturers are going to see tariffs as high as 50% completely wiped out over the next few years. For folks exporting machinery, most of these tariffs will just disappear the day the deal takes effect. And on the other side, Indonesian producers of things like textiles, shoes, and palm oil are going to get much, much better access to the huge European market. And hey, it's not just about the money and tariffs. Take car parts, for example. The old way was a real headache. A part would get certified in the EU, and then it had to be completely retested and recertified all over again in Indonesia. Talk about slow and expensive. But now, under the new rules, Indonesia will just accept the EU's international certification directly. This one change gets rid of a huge barrier to trade, saving an incredible amount of time and money. So the deal is agreed upon, the handshake has happened, but the work isn't over yet. So what's the road look like from this paper agreement to actual real-world change? Let's check out the timeline. All right, so with negotiations done, the next big step is a really careful legal review and translation process. After that, the deal has to be officially signed and then ratified, which means approved by both the European Parliament and Indonesia's government. The really ambitious target they've set is to have the whole thing up and running by January 2027. And finally, let's talk about what might be the most forward-looking and maybe even the most important part of this entire agreement, the new groundbreaking link between trade and sustainability. See, this deal includes a really strong chapter on what's called Trade and Sustainable Development, or TSD for short. And let me be clear, this is not just some nice sounding statement of good intentions. No, this is a legally binding part of the agreement. It creates a direct, enforceable link between getting the benefits of the trade deal and sticking to clear environmental and labor standards. And these commitments, they have real teeth. Both sides are legally on the hook to uphold the Paris Agreement on climate change, to follow the core labor rights from the International Labor Organization, and to actively fight things like illegal forestry and fishing. And if one side feels the other isn't holding up their end of the bargain, they can be challenged through an official dispute settlement process. And to deal with one of the most sensitive and, let's be honest, contentious issues in their trade relationship, the agreement actually creates a one-of-a-kind palm oil protocol. This sets up a special forum where both sides can work together to make sure the production and trade of palm oil is truly sustainable. So you see, this is so much more than just a trade deal. By making sustainability a core, legally enforceable part of the whole thing, the EU and Indonesia have really created a new kind of partnership. And it leaves us with a really big question. Is this ambitious model, using trade as a direct tool for environmental and social progress, is this the new blueprint for all global agreements in the future?